Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my political and economical channel, and welcome to this session. Today, I'm going to talk about war and peace. This is one of the aspects that I would like to touch because sometimes in Colombia we don't pay attention to the disastrous and faithful uh, way that we are following long time ago. In the past, the war was used for different leaders of the world in order to organize their empires, in order to get territories for their uh, families or the habitants, such as Temujin and his clan, uh, Greeks, Romans, etc., Babylons, etc., etc., etc. Right? So in the past, the great motivation for the war was the amount of resources that some territories had and the possibility of other territories, other people to take those resources in order to create or in order to form a new philosophy or a new empire or a new territory to the families of those who are conquering those territories. Unfortunately, things haven't changed a lot since the past for today to today. You can, for example, see uh, after the fateful year 1492, when Europeans, I mean Spanish people, they came to America by using the their technology, their weapons, their diseases, and after killing about 50 million of people here in America, they brought the war as one of the strategies to get these territories. And of course, we have to remember that Germany, Dutch, um, Poland, for example, France, England, they also had colonies in other territories. For example, in the England had India as their own territory, and in Africa, Africa was a continent just scammed by those big countries which controlled those territories by using technologies. Those technologies that were very well known and were not developed in those continents. Today, we can see, for example, the United States expands uh, its way of thinking about democracy in other territories such as Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and they try to control those territories not because of their political tendency about democracy. This is the kind of uh, facade that they use to say that they are the savers of the world. No, they look for those territories and they go to those territories to get the resources that they have or that they find in those territories. And most of those territories in which uh, there are armies of the United States correspond to territories which are very rich. For example, in petroleum, in emeralds, in gold, platinum, titanium, etc., etc., etc. So maybe there are some people in this world that still believe that democracy is the greatest or the most fantastic way of administrating uh, a population or a country. But it is not the only way to administrate. There are many others. And according to the international, according to international rights, each country has got its own possibility to make decisions about the way it wants to be administrated. I mean, population in a country have to make decisions about the way they want to be administrated. And no other country, no one can come into those territories or into those countries in order to make decisions or in order to push decisions to change the people's decisions about the political way they want to be administrated. So this is what is happening with the United States. And we can see, for example, the war in Vietnam, in Korea, the wars in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Syria, in Congo. And they are acting not only to preserve, quoted, the democracy, but also in order to steal, to scam those countries' resources. But they said that they are just trying to bring democracy to those countries, to help people to be free, etc., etc., etc. And that is all rubbish, because, for example, with that kind of lies, they came into Iraq and saying that Iraq had nuclear weapons, and it was not true. And the United States uses all different discourses or different speeches to assure the rest of the world, those who believed in them, that they are doing well. But actually, what they are doing is scamming, robbing, stealing other country resources at their service. And of course, for them, it is very useful to have governments which play the role of intermediate, or which play the role of letting them getting and scamming those resources. But this is the point of the war. They are expanding their territory. They are looking for different territories in different places because of the resources, not because of the democracy or whatever they say. And of course, right now in Ukraine, they are facing another force. They are facing a different way of living, a different culture, a different lifestyle. And this is what is happening in Ukraine. Because they are against different ways of people making decision about their way they want to be administrated. This is the thing no more. They wanted Ukrainian resources. They wanted Ukrainian resources. They wanted what Ukraine had, which was the proximity to Russia. They wanted to be right there. They wanted to provoke war because they wanted to first to prove their technology, to prove if Russia had the ability, or if Russia was able to give our respective answer to their offensive. And third, because Ukraine had oil and cereals and other resources. not because of the democracy. Our country, Colombia, is a territory of war. It's incredible how after Spanish came to our territory, we haven't lived in peace. First, all the process of colony, our ancestors were fighting against Spanish people. After that, when our revolution and our independence, we were in war. After our independence, amongst our leaders such as Bolivar and Santander, centralists and federalists, they fought against each other in order to control the country. In 1887, there was a new constitution. And that constitution helped what to reduce those movements of revolution or attempts to change the power. And our country was just a little, our country had a little period of peace. After that, in 1948, after killing Jorge Eliezer Gaitan, we started again with a civil war which hasn't finished yet. When in our history it appeared the control of the government, those leaders which are liberales and those who were conservadores, they pretended to control the government, but as their tendency to administrate was not responsible for those who were poor, there was an organization of farmers who became a guerrilla instead of negotiation with the government. When they negotiated, they were betrayed by the government. So we can see, for example, that we have a kind of sequence of attempts to have peace in our country, and after that, the government betraying to keep the war. It happened at the very beginning in Marquetalia. Then there was an attempt to have peace in 1984, and it was betrayed by the government. And after that, there was a very great agreement of peace in Colombia before the 91 Constitution. And most of the guerrilla movements came into peace, but the leaders of those movements were killed by the government. And I can assure that because at the moment, after a lot of research, our government is declared guilty of assassination of those popular leaders. But the war continued because the greatest movement, the guerrillero movement, which was the FARC, continued in the guerrilla. After that, there was another attempt. Leaders such as Carlos Pizarro León Gómez, leaders such as Bonilla, and others were killed by the government because they were against the government by using the same tools that the government had. After that, in 2008 or 10, there was another attempt to peace with that group of guerrilleros, with the President Pastrana. And there was a group or a member of, there was a group of members of those of that guerrilleros that took the peace path, but not all of them. And they kept uh, the war because there were some economical interests. So we can see, for example, in our conflict, that there are some economic interests that correspond to the theory of war, because the theory of war is not about democracy. That is all rubbish. The theory of war is about the resources and the drug dealers that control this kind of business. They are not able to have peace because it is better to have illegal drugs because they are more expensive. So those drugs give more money to those drug dealers instead of having legal drugs. And our government, not, well, I suppose this one, the preceding governments was uh, infiltrated by the drug dealers. Even one of our presidents is named by the Justice of the United States as the 82 member of the drug dealers. But there is a kind of net, a terrorist net inside our government that controls the laws. There are some senators which are implicated in this kind of business. There were some presidents. And our justice is very slow because inside our justice, there are people who participate into those businesses. So for those drug dealers, for those who like money by using this kind of business, it is better to be in war instead of being in peace. And the only thing that we want as Colombians is being in peace. Of course, they have contaminated, to say it in a particular way, they have contaminated our culture, that at that point, that some popular people, some poor people consider that they are great drug dealers because they sell some drugs in their neighbors, destroying the younghood, destroying the childhood. Those drug dealers are destroying our country. And there are still people who believe that democracy in our country exists. And there are still people in our country, poor people, that believe in those great drug dealers, such as some old or some past presidents that are involved in this kind of business. What a pity. Our territory is full of drug dealers, beginning from those who sell those drugs in neighborhoods, in schools, and streets, but they don't realize that they are only servants for those, the biggest ones, who are in the government or who were in the government. This is a little reflection about our political situation in Colombia and the world. Thank you very much.